Thank you, Congressman Griffin. I do, and I agree with what you had to say and wholeheartedly support your concepts and where we need to be moving this country. And let me say to each and every one of you that the American worker is second to none in this world. Second to none. When you look at our workers, they are the most innovative workers in the world, and they are the hardest workers in the world. Statistics, different reports continue to show us this point. We will never compete with the Chinese and other countries on wages, nor do we want to. But our advantage, Congressman Griffin, is that we have the ability to use our energy resources in a way that we can create jobs, and we can fight for American jobs by having affordable energy. That's our trump card. And for some reason, those in the administration want to tie our hands behind our backs and not allow our businesses to use our trump card to keep jobs in the United States and bring jobs back. And that is that we have great energy resources in this country. You know, the president was recently in Florida, and he mockingly described Republican plans on energy and getting gas prices down. He said, step one is drill, step two is drill, step three is drill. Well, you know, the president's just wrong. We have a true all-of-the-above policy, and I like to describe it this way. It is drill. That's step one. Step two, dig. Step three, discover. Step four, deregulate. And let me explain a little bit. Drill's easy. We have vast untapped resources in oil, and we have huge resources in natural gas. We're allowed to drill for natural gas and for oil. We can turn around a lot of the things that are happening in this country. Let's talk about gas prices, because that affects jobs. Listen, some of this has to do with looking at the world market. And if we signaled immediately that we were ready to start using our resources, the prices would come down, because those people who are speculating that oil is not going to be available in the future, and not the so distant future, but also even 2 or 3 years from now, would realize that the giant in the world of energy was finally awakened from its slumber and ready to go on the march for jobs. And so I think it's important that we look at drilling. I don't think we should be mocking it. Now, dig. Obviously, we have a lot of coal resources in this country. My district has a lot of coal. It also has natural gas. We are number one in the world in coal resources. Everybody else in the world is using the coal. We are the ones who refuse to use it. As I said before, we have our hands tied behind our backs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to tell you something. We need to have reasonable regulations, but we've got to untie our hands and be ready to use our coal. The Chinese are now buying our coal to use our coal to make the products, the goods that we used to make in this country. And guess what? A lot of times folks say, we don't want to use coal because it has pollution and it creates problems. But a NASA study has shown us that if we have the Chinese using our coal to make the products we used to make, they get the money for those products, their people have the jobs, and guess what happens to the pollutants in the air? It takes roughly 10 days to get from the middle of the Gobi Desert to the eastern shore of my beloved Virginia. Just 10 days. We know that a significant portion of the mercury in our air is coming from foreign sources. Not our plants, but foreign sources.
Can I inject something there?
I yield back.
I'd like to comment on something the gentleman just said. I think it's a great point. And a lot of times, some of us think about this country and pollution here. But I think that what I hear you saying, it's a very, very good point, is that this is one world, and we in this country, through the processes and the regulatory structure that we have, we burn coal cleaner. We are a better steward of the earth when it comes to using some of these traditional energy sources. So what I hear you saying is, and I think it makes a lot of sense, if you believe that coal will not be used if we do not use it here, then that's not exactly accurate. Somebody's going to burn it. The question is, do we do a better job with some of these traditional energy sources? Do we do a better job than other countries that will burn it if we don't? The Chinese can burn the same coal, yet regulate it in a way where they do a lot more damage to the environment. And that brings me actually to the Keystone Pipeline. The President first delayed it, then he denied it, so that the extreme environmentalists would be happy with him. But if you apply what you're talking about, it seems to me we would rather be refining the oil sands from Canada in this country instead of the alternative that Canada has talked about, which is shipping it to China for refining. Why? Because we refine cleaner, we refine safer, we do a better job. Those oil sands are going to be refined. The issue is not if we don't refine them, no one will. The fact is they will be refined. The issue is, do we refine them or do the Chinese refine them? And I think what you're saying, and I wholeheartedly agree, we do a better job here.
Absolutely.
And I yield back.
And I would have to say we do a much better job here. And, you know, it's almost like I can remember when I was much younger, liberals always said to conservatives, well, you all act like the United States is the only country in the world and we have to look at the whole world. Now the liberals are looking at it and saying, well, the United States is the only country in the world. We have to only look at the United States and we don't look at the big picture. And I think inadvertently, even with good intentions, there are in fact greater pollution risks by us not using our energy than there are with us using our energy with the reasonable regulations that have been in place for some time. That being said, let's take a look how that impacts on jobs. Not only do we get the pollution, but we don't get the jobs. We don't get the money. And you talked about, you know, living within our means and so forth. I mean, let's just take a look at my district. AEP, American Electric Power, is the biggest power provider in my district. There are others. They have estimated with new regulations, energy costs are going to go up 10 to 15% as they spend an additional $6 to $8 billion. 10 to 15% on hardworking American families is tough. But when you look at the job component, that means it's going to cost more in my district to make potato chips. It's going to cost more in my district to work the family farm. It's going to cost more in my district to make furniture. It's going to cost more in my district to make paper products, whiteboard. And I've just touched on the surface.
Sure.
Every single retail establishment, every single business has to use electricity. But when you raise the cost of manufacturing goods or using electricity to manufacture goods by 10 to 15% over the course of the next few years, you're making us less competitive in the world. And we lose more jobs. And we have more people who are unemployed and more people who aren't able to go out and buy products, which then means more people lose their jobs because they're not selling those Fords down at the Ford place. They're not selling washing machines and TVs and all the products that are out there. And we lose even more jobs because of the failure to recognize that the regulations are killing our jobs and our jobs are going elsewhere. And I have to say, getting back to what I call the 4 Ds, drill, dig, discover, and deregulate, I'm not saying we don't look at all of the above. The President was in Florida. He said we only wanted to drill, 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 and he was talking about algae. Well, I'm not one of those people who's going to criticize the President for looking at algae. I think algae actually has a positive future. But it's a positive future that is probably 15 to 50 years away. 15 to 50 years. We need energy now. We need affordable energy now. We need jobs now. And to be looking at something, I think it's absolutely right. That's the discover part of those 4 Ds. We need to encourage discovery. But one of the ways to encourage discovery is to deregulate and let people make a product without having all kinds of regulations put on. It's interesting. how folks want to do all these things, and then they come up with regulations and they find out that the new startup companies oftentimes have difficulty creating the new alternative energies because they run into other regulations that prohibit them from going forward. So I think we need to make sure we look at drill, dig, discovery, looking at those alternatives, finding more ways that we can be efficient, and finding new alternative energies. And then let's not regulate our industries out of existence, which is where we're headed at this point. And when you do that, we continue to lose jobs. We continue to have a flat economy. Look, I don't think saying that we're down on the unemployment situation has gotten better, but we're still in the neighborhood of 8%. I don't think that's anything to celebrate. I'm glad it's better, but I don't think it's something that you go out and go, woo, we've solved our problems. And I believe that we have not solved our problems at this point. We're working on it, and that's good. And the economy in this country, because of our hard-working Americans, because they're innovative, and because they work harder than anybody else, is not going to just roll over and die. But at the same time, it could be doing so much better, and we need to maintain that we are the #1 economic power in the world. And the way to do that is to keep our jobs by keeping our energy and our energy sources and our energy costs at a reasonable level so that we can, in fact, compete with the low-wage countries of the world. We don't want the low wages, but to do so, to make sure that we can still compete, we have to keep our energy affordable.
With the gentleman yield, I want to comment a little bit on